Greetings fellow Whovians and welcome to Timey Wimey Review. As of January 2022, it's been 40 years since Peter Davison debuted as the 5th Doctor. And so in celebration of that 40th anniversary, please hit the subscribe button as I reveal my top 5 5th Doctor stories. This list will comprise of Peter Davison's original run as the 5th Doctor from 1982 to 1984, and an honourable mention goes to the 5 Doctors. This 1983 special was so close to being added onto this list, and even though Peter Davison was the lead as the 5th Doctor, I felt that it was more a celebration of all the Doctors rather than just a standalone 5th Doctor story. Not to say anything bad about the 5 Doctors, because this is just a great celebration of previous Doctors, companions, monsters and villains. Terrance Dicks does a masterclass in celebrating 20 years of Doctor Who at that time. If you haven't seen this special before and you haven't really watched many classic Doctor Who stories, maybe not start with this one, but definitely add this very quickly onto your list of classic Doctor Who to watch. Let's start this list proper with number 5, The Visitation. This is just a fun 4-part pseudo-historical adventure, and having recently rewatched it, it really got me thinking of seeing the 5th Doctor in a different light, really. It wasn't really what would the Doctor do in this scenario. It's kind of more, what will the 5th Doctor do to get out of this situation? Just to explain a little bit further, the 4th Doctor, Tom Baker, especially towards the end of his tenure, was just impregnable. You know, he could easily defeat the villains or the monsters with just the bravado and the confidence that his character oozed. And Peter Davison, I felt, brought something a bit new to the role of the Doctor. I think he showed a more vulnerable side to the Doctor, and you know, is certainly a step in a different direction to what we're used to with the 4th Doctor. Most notably, you know, this is the one that got rid of the sonic screwdriver for quite a while. So they really did sort of stamp out with the old, in with the new. I liked, especially in the 5th Doctor's first season, that he was a little bit more tetchy, a little bit more snappy with his companions, especially poor Adric. He usually got a lot of stick from the 5th Doctor, really. But for the Visitation, I really liked the Pteroleptals as the villains of the show. I thought that the makeup and the costume was really good. It was probably one of the first animatronic costumes that they used in classic Doctor Who, and I thought they added an extra layer with the leader of the Pteroleptals being scarred, as these were these fugitives that have broken out of a prison. Yeah, if you haven't seen The Visitation before, it's a really good historical fun adventure. Number 4, Mawdryn Undead. This kicked off the Black Guardian trilogy as part of season 20 of classic Doctor Who, where there was just doing quite a few sort of throwbacks to 20 years of Doctor Who, and this was definitely one of them. But what I also liked is they introduced a new companion for the 5th Doctor in the form of Turlough, played by Mark Strickson, and I really liked the character of Turlough. They didn't really overly explain that he was an alien from another world who is just living on Earth, adopted somehow. It didn't really get explained quite well in this story, but I liked that the Black Guardian picked him out, and to get him back on his planet, he will help him do that. But first, he must help extract revenge by killing the Doctor. So I really thought that this companion was quite refreshing, as you didn't really know which side he was on. Also, Mawdryn Undead brings back Nicholas Courtney as the Brigadier, or as Lethbridge Stewart. After a 7-year absence, he was the school teacher for Turlough's private tutoring, and yeah, I enjoyed Nicholas Courtney coming back. He did have a little bit more to do, really, with being 2 sort of separate brigadiers in different time periods. And going into the research of this, originally this character was going to be Ian Chesterton. William Russell, that was going to try and bring him back to do this story, and but sadly he was busy at the time, so Nicholas Courtney stepped in. So as much as I loved Nicholas Courtney in this story, there is a big what if Ian Chesterton did come back for this 4-part adventure. Nonetheless, this is still a great story to kick off the Black Guardian trilogy. I really also liked Mawdryn. Again, great costume and makeup where he's basically seeing his brain. It's quite gruesome, really. And top it all off with some great 80s soundtrack by Paddy Kingsland. It's probably one of my favourite soundtracks from the Fifth Doctor era. If you haven't listened to it, do check it out. You can find it quite easily on YouTube. But really, definitely, Mawdryn Undead is a must watch. Number 3, Resurrection of the Daleks. Script editor Eric Saywood gets a crack at these classic villains, and it's just bloodshed all the way. Kind of what I mentioned in my top 5 Dalek stories. It's just carnage left, right, and centre. This has probably got the most highest body count in the history of Doctor Who. But it's also a great resurrection of Davros. Terry Molloy now plays Davros, this iconic villain, and with the makeup as well, he definitely brings his own role as Davros, respectively, with certainly a marked difference to David Goodison's and Michael Wish's performance as Davros. And I really like the sparring between Davros and the Fifth Doctor, again really exploiting this vulnerability that Peter Davison brought to the table. It is full of subplots and it is full to the brim. If you can imagine, like a suitcase, it's just bursting at the seams with subplots. And this also, slight spoiler, brings the departure of Tegan, played by Janet Fielding, in this story. And I think they just about got away with it. I think the blood count and the body count kind of might have put quite a few people off, being a bit too violent, but quickly adding in this departure really just kind of nails it for me for Resurrection of Daleks. It's not the best. We'll definitely get to those very, very shortly. But I do have a lot of fondness for Resurrection of the Daleks. This was probably one of my earliest ones that I got from on home video, on VHS, and definitely had a lot of rewatch when I saw all this destruction. Number 2, Earthshock. Eric Saywood again penned this story, which definitely cemented him as the king of resurrecting classic Doctor Who monsters, and he did so brilliantly with the return of the Cybermen. It had a great cliffhanger for part 1 and just went off from there. And I won't go into too much detail because there is a review of Earthshock on my Timey Wimey Review YouTube channel. Please check that out. But again, it's just a really good 4-part adventure, really good music score, some great moments with the Fifth Doctor and the leader of the Cybermen, and obviously that shocking ending to poor Adric. And this was very much a Dr. Adric companion story with a little bit of Tegan, but definitely Nyssa being put in the sidelines. But apart from that, this is again a must watch, and you can see why it's definitely in the top 5 of Fifth Doctor stories. And number 1, Caves of Androzani. It had to be, really. This is just such a great swan song for the Fifth Doctor, and has this great combination of bringing in some of the old with the return of writer Robert Holmes and mixing it with the new, with the directorial TV debut or directing debut for Doctor Who with Graham Harper. Graham Harper is definitely one of my favourite directors of all sort of TV, especially with Doctor Who. His energy and enthusiasm that he brings just really sort of just gives that extra energy and charge with the characters and actors involved. It's got some great dialogue, great characters here by Robert Holmes, and it's just basic 101 storytelling with the Doctor doing anything to save his friend and fairly new companion Perry, played by Nicola Bryant. And set aside the weird bat dragon-like creature that was in this story, I'd say Caves of Androzani is definitely up there with the classic of classic stories. I say it's nearly on par with Genesis of the Daleks. It's just that good, and this is such a great swan song, as I said earlier, to the Fifth Doctor, really exposing that vulnerability in its sort of near 60-year history of Doctor Who. So much so that I felt that they kind of missed a trick when the 11th Doctor was mentioned about Androzani in the episode The Doctor, the Widow and the Wardrobe. I think that should have really brought a shudder back to his spine of what happened on Androzani Minor. The just bringing that atmosphere with the music as well. If you haven't watched it before, do check it out. This is probably one of the best regeneration episodes or stories of all time, but it is definitely the best Fifth Doctor story in my humble opinion. Do you agree with my list? Let me know in the comments below. What is your favourite Fifth Doctor story, whether it's from the original run in the 80s to some of the audio adventures that Peter Davison has been performing for Big Finish Audios. Next time on Timey Wimey Review, I will be reviewing the first episode of the Doctor Who spin-off series, Class. Until then, thank you very much for watching this video. I hope you've enjoyed it. Please check out my other videos on the Timey Wimey Review YouTube channel. Please also like the video, share the video, subscribe to the channel and hit that cloister bell for more notifications. But as the good doctor once said, an apple a day keeps the no, never mind.